Anyway, all right. Okay, at this time, I'd like to call to order the Governance Committee meeting to order. It's 5:34. I will do a roll call so you can say present, since I'm not sure that I can see everyone. Danielle Green.
Present.
Carol McIntosh.
She must be muted.
Okay, because I thought I saw her
Can you hear
face.
me? Can you hear
we
me?
can now.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, there you are.
I'm sorry, Ted.
Okay, Vera Perry,
Here.
Betty Ramsdale, and Diana Wright, myself. Okay. Those absent, well, I don't think we have anyone who's absent that's a part of the Governance Committee. At this time, the board will hear.
Is she on a committee? I mean, a committee chair?
Who?
She is. She's having difficulty getting in, so I may have to use, yeah. So
Yeah, because Betty is the academic committee chair. Okay, at this time, the board will hear any comments from the public. Public members that have joined our meeting remotely are able to submit their questions through the questions section or may send an email prior to the meeting. Members of the committee are reminded that the Board of Education, by its bylaw 1370, is not obligated to answer questions, make statements, or comments in response to issues raised by the public. In general, such issues will be referred to the interim superintendent for study or recommendation. At this time, we'll take a few minutes and allow Stephen to present any questions if there are any. So is Stephen on the line?
Hi there. Yep. Currently, there are no questions as far as the meeting goes. Monica, do you have any via email? Apologize.
no emails were submitted earlier today or this past week.
Okay, so I do want to remind the public that they are able to submit their questions by email to Flint Board of Education or FBOE at flintschools.org to have their questions read at the next meeting. Okay, so we will move right into action items 5.1, rescission of Neola supplemental board policies. And I need a motion to move and second the revision of the Neola supplemental board policies to the Governance Committee of the whole meeting tomorrow, May 13th, 2020, for full review by the board.
So moved.
It has been properly moved and second that we move the rescission of Neola supplemental board policies to the Governance Committee of the whole meeting tomorrow for full review by the board. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Just go ahead, Ms. Green.
Okay, so I don't know if we're okay. As far as the purchasing policy goes, I know we have the two policies. I'm not, but I think it's a lot of unanswered questions and uncertainty on which policy. And I say that because I've talked to other board members, and we're trying. And for me, it was confusing. So I think it would be a good idea if we had an opportunity to have, I guess, a governance call or so where all board members can be a part and ask questions about the policy to vent out the differences or the confusion that there is. And what I think would be a good idea is to have some administrators here like Anita, Carrie. I don't know if Cassandra would be a part of that. And also somebody from Neola to explain, because I'm not sure which policy is better or if one is better or why it's better. So for me, it's just a lot of confusion and a lot of unanswered questions. And for me, I would like to hear from Neola, a representative, I guess, to explain, because from my understanding, for us to be in compliance, we have to use certain policies. And what I learned after talking to some people, 85% of the county uses those. So for me, it's some confusion. I don't think I'm the only one who has some questions that need to be answered. And I would like to see the whole board come together with all the information and the concerns of administration also in reference to which policy and why.
Well, we are moving this to the full board govern, so just like you do your
Mhm.
section of the meeting regarding regarding the treasury. Goodness, I can't even say that word. But so we will also have that same section for governance where questions and discussion can be held. We're just moving it to the next level where all board members are present.
And I thought also that should come back to finance before it went to governance. I'm not sure what happened there, but so it's going to Kyle or it's going to a full board. I think it should go to Kyle so we can vet out the questions and stuff and then go to full board. That's not
That's exactly what I just said. We're moving it to the cow.
okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Right. So this is basically another subcommittee, I guess you could say. Am I
So
correct on that? And I think that, and just based on my knowledge of the policies, when I came on the board, the Neola process was already in place. And I'm not sure how it got started, but what I do know is that I was given the impression that we had to
mhm,
have certain policies changed, which it did not require a complete revision of the policies. We just
mhm,
had to have some updates. But I think we did a total update instead of just updating what should have been updated, which then caused a confusion because we basically, because of so many questions, that was when, I don't know if it was Dr. Lopez or someone made the recommendation that we just adopt both and
mhm.
somehow we use one to override. Well, we would use the Flint policies unless we needed to update in the Neola. I'm not quite sure how that went,
Right.
but it was very confusing. So it was confusing, but I think our best bet would have been to just update what we needed to update in our policy rather than to just adopt Neola wholeheartedly because most of the time board members didn't even show up to the revision meeting. So, you know,
Okay. So I appreciate that clarification. And I'm still confused on which
I
one.
understand.
You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? So I think it'd be a good idea if we could get the entire, if it's going to the cow, we can do that. And I'm not even sure if we can get a Neola representative on the line to ask some questions. I'm not even sure if that's possible, but I would like to see that.
Yeah, if I may, Diana.
Go ahead, Kendall.
Yeah, Danielle, what the Flint Schools has in place is two sets of policies.
Right.
The board policies that existed in 2018, and rather than to undergo the effort and time to integrate those policies together, Mr. Lopez recommended having two sets, adopting Neola, subject to the caveat that the Flint School Board policies, if there was a conflict, they would override the Neola policies.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you'll find any other school district that has two sets of policies writing side by side. And that has caused a tremendous amount of confusion because the policies may not have, directly conflicting provisions, but they have different provisions. So the administration struggles, well, what do we follow? I mean, which ones do we follow? And again, in hindsight, it would have been far better, for general counsel at the time, for Flint Schools, to integrate those all into one document instead of having two separate documents. The Neola policies also, the Flint School Board has had an excellent set of board policies for a long time and has worked hard to keep those policies up to date. And there were just a couple of things that were included in Neola that were not included in the Flint School Board policies. And that's what we're addressing, later on today, a couple of items that need to be updated. But other than that, I don't, there isn't anything that mandates or says that Neola policies are better than what you had in place. And I don't know of any school district in the state of Michigan that has two sets of policies, Neola plus something else. That just doesn't, it's confusing. It doesn't make sense. And the Neola policies require what we have already in place, and that's that we have policies plus regulations. We have board regulations. They're administrative regulations. And Neola policies require administrative guidelines. And as I understand it, you know, since the Neola policies were adopted, no administrative guidelines have been adopted and brought to the board for approval. And that creates a big problem because there are a lot of references to administrative guidelines in those Neola policies, and they don't exist.
Right.
Can I add, so yes, it causes confusion with administration as to which policy to use, whether it's Flint Community Schools or the Neola policy. But I will also add that we have been cited by our auditors for having both of those, for having both Flint Community
Everybody
Schools
just popped
and
up. Not even aware.
the Neola policy.
Well, if we've been cited, I think the best thing to do is to go forward and move forward rather and adopt the one set of policies and make sure that we revise those that need to be revised. Because I don't want us to get cited again for that.
Right. So for me, for my clarification and for me being able to understand why and which policy I think is best so I can vote accordingly, I would still like to see a Neola representative. Well, not see, but hear, I guess. But I'm confused on why the Neola was ever brought in if our policies were okay, except they needed to be updated because it was paid for by the foundation and it's paid up to 2023. Am I mistaken on that? Is that correct?
See,
That
I'm
is
not
correct.
aware of any of that. Oh, I didn't
That
even
is
know that.
correct.
So it's paid, and I'm not sure why we're wasting all that. I'm not sure why that was even considered if our policies were fine and we've been fighting to keep them, as Kendall said. Like, that makes no sense to me. I just have a lot of questions. You know what I'm saying? For me, I would like to have a representative there just so I
a part of the problem with that, Danielle, is that the leadership keeps changing. Board members who are on governance keeps changing. So I'm sure that, well, for me, I have no idea how the whole Neola thing got started. So, and I guess the only consistent person in all of that would be probably Monica, because, you know, I think it may have started with Mr. Watkins and then Mr. Twab and then Dr. Lopez. So, you know, and I don't know if it started even before Mr. Watkins. I have no idea. So if Monica is on the line, maybe she can say how it all got started, because I don't know.
Hello.
Monica?
Oh.
Hi, it's me.
Who is that?
I can hear you, Vera.
Can you hear me?
I hear you now, yes. So who is, okay, go ahead, Ms. Perry.
It started under Mr. Watkins.
What started?
I fought it all the way.
What started
to me? Because we had our policy. We had all of our policies.
Okay.
There was only one policy, and Kendall could say what it was. Oh, it was about something about abortions or something. Mm-hmm. That's the only one we did not have. But everything else we were covered. And Danielle, I'm gonna be honest. I believe if you do hear from a Neola person,
okay,
they're gonna give you a lot of gobbledygook. Mm-hmm. Okay. But if you go through our policies, we have everything covered. Everything is covered. And it's easy because not only did the board write the policies, then administration put in the regulations. And like Kendall was saying, there are no regulations written because we were not having governance meetings. I don't think we've had a governance meeting in 2 years. I might be wrong. I know it's at least one. Well, it could be two.
We didn't have any all of last year, but we did have them the year before.
That's exactly
Who was vice president?
Last year?
No, year before.
Yeah.
Year before, I was vice president.
And you had
Wait
governance.
a minute. No. We haven't had governance meetings since I was vice president in Mr. Wilson's last year.
Yeah.
So I
See
was
how long
president,
ago that was?
I was president for 2 years. So Mr. Wilson was vice, he didn't have any. And then last year, Mr. Strozier was vice president, and he didn't have any meetings.
That's what okay, so I said 2 years. And it's and we had gotten lax. It had gotten lax at reviewing policies.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it was brought up that this would be easier to bring them on, but it has not done anything but made it even more confusing. What this board needs to do is, regardless of who is vice president, we need to be having those meetings so every year we can review policies, okay? And that's how you keep them up to date. That's the only problem we have. We have not done our due diligence when it came to policy.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, so that can help you a little bit more.
Thank you, thank you,
Mhm.
thank you. So Mo,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Betty. Address her.
I apologize. Can you all hear me?
yeah,
Yes.
Okay. I apologize for coming in late. I thought I had it all set up and I couldn't get it to work, so I'm doing it this way. I don't disagree with anything that's been said. My issue is remember, they wanted us to have Neola come in because they said we weren't in compliance with the state, whatever, and the Mott Foundation gave us money to bring them in. My thing is I have a problem, my own problem, whatever it is, with doing this in bits and pieces. My thought is I would like to be for us all to be able to sit down, and I know it may be a while, but we've stumbled through this for a while anyway. So I think if we, moved it down the line, when we can have both the policies and everything right next to each other, and I can see what is and what isn't, or what we're changing and what we're not changing, and all of that. I'm not opposed to any of this. I just don't feel that I have information that my brain is not registering it unless I see them side by side. And that's what I would like to do, just because I would feel much more informed and comfortable with it.
I agree. That's where I am, and I do see that Neola may come with some giggly gobbly. I think is that what it was called. But for me to feel like I'm making an informed vote, it's important for me to be able to decipher and listen to both sides. That's just me, and I would like to see that. So Mo, is that possible?
To bring in the Neola?
Representative? Yeah, just to kind of explain. Because when I heard Neola, I'm like, what's that? You know what I'm saying? To be perfectly honest, and I'm not 100% sure everything that they are doing for us for the money we paid them that was given to us by the Mott Foundation. I would hate to waste that money. To me, it makes no sense. So I would, yeah, is that possible that Neola represents?
Yeah, I can reach the representative and see if he would be. He's not the one that worked with the district at the time when we developed the policies. That was Dr. Peters. But I will reach the current rep and see if that's the pleasure of the board.
You know what? Just to add, excuse me for interrupting. I'm sorry, but since I can't hear all of you, first I would like to see the policy side by side, so I could say to Kendall or the Neola guy, okay, what is this bringing? What is this covering? And what isn't this covering? I just would like to see and really mark them. I don't want to go through the whole Neola thing again, but to see which ones we are changing, but to have my list in front of me with, okay, why this? And he can say, just because I feel like I'm kind of just walking into, just being a little blinded by this. And I want to make sure about this, because not only did we pay all the Mott Foundation money, but we also paid for all the board members to all the meetings. I know they earned that money, they were on some of them. But just to see that, this would be more comfortable having that. It goes in front of me and Mark.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to, oh, I hear some feedback somewhere, but I do want you guys to understand that if you want to do a side-by-side review of the policies, that's going to take years because to go through those side by side, and which, if that's what has to be done, if that is what has to be done, we're going to do that. But I do think that it's a lengthy process, because even the Neola process was a lengthy process, because we're going through these things page by page, and there are thousands of pages. And so I just wanted us to be sure that this is what we want to do, is to go through these things again, page by page, because that's the only way you can do a side-by-side review of all of these policies. Because I was in the Neola process, and for the most part, they're all the same. The only thing that was different was, I think it's whatever, as Kendall would say, whatever new law came out, they may have added a policy or adjusted a policy related to that. But for the most part, we were sitting there basically saying, oh, we already have that. We already have that. We already have that. We already have that. Because we do have a great set of policies. And as I said, because I came into it already in progress, I didn't fight it, but basically we were sitting there saying, we already have that. We already have that.
Because he was surprised.
Monica, can I speak? Miss Wright, I didn't mean to go through the whole thing. I misspoke. If that's what you thought I said, I misspoke. Just the ones we're looking at changing. Just the ones that you've given us. Those, what, there's 6, 8 of them. I don't remember quite how many there were. But just those. I don't need to sit down and go through the whole thing again. I don't need to do that. Just the ones that we're making adjustments to are the only ones that I'm talking about.
And that is exactly what we're doing now, is allowing for this, because remember, the policies themselves have to go through a couple of reviews before they are actually adopted. So it's not like you are saying tonight, the policy's done. What we're saying tonight is, in the interim, we need to go back to our original policies and look at those that need to be changed. We're doing two things. We're going back to our original policies and reviewing those that need to be changed.
Okay, that's what I'm asking, is that we sit down and those are side by side and we're seeing both of them. And we're going to, let me just get it off, and that we're going to look and see if we're going to change that policy, know the reason why, and what we're going to change it to. Or some people may decide to keep the previous one. That's all I'm asking, just so.
Right, and if you looked at your board packet, there are actually, the policies are there, and there's also the copy with the red line, which shows the changes. So those documents were emailed to, well, they're on board book, I think. Is that correct, Monica?
Yes, they're on board book.
So right there, you can see the new policy with the changes that will be made. So if you are, if you go through your information, and then whatever issues you have them, after you reviewed it, have those concerns ready for the committee of the whole, because you have all of that information in board book, which was prepared for this meeting.
Okay, Monica, can I talk now? I don't mean to interrupt, but since I can't see everyone. And where we would discuss them right there in front of us, so we all can ask questions. We've gone this far going through this with the new law. So frankly, I'm sorry, but I don't see the rush to do it, but I would like to be able to have understand why they need to be changed. I just want to know. That's all. I'm not forward. I just want to know. That's all.
I guess I'm a little confused now, because the reason why we're doing this is because concerns were expressed from administration regarding the two sets of policies, which made their jobs a little bit more difficult.
Right.
So this whole discussion came about because we want to be clear on expectations for administration. This didn't just come up out of the clear blue sky. There was a concern on the part of administration. May I finish, please? There was a concern on the part of, in particular, the finance office about what policies to follow. So that's how this all came about. And again, I want to reiterate that this is a subcommittee, more or less. The subcommittee, through Ms. Wood, has provided all of the policies that we are discussing on board book for your review. So at the committee of the whole, just like with all of the other meetings, you read the information, you prepare your questions, and we have a discussion. This is not being rushed through. It came about because of a concern. We discussed it last month in a meeting. This is another subcommittee, and tomorrow we'll have committee of the whole. This is not being rushed. The only thing we're trying to do is be clear to it for administration.
Excuse me.
Is that Miss Carol? I can't hear.
Yeah, that's
I can't
Carol.
see.
It
Okay,
is.
I can't see her.
You can't see me?
No, my computer screen is crazy. I can see the top of your head, but not your face.
Okay. I think you're seeing Danielle's head, maybe. I don't know. No, because she's on there too. Anyway, we went over these policies in our last physical meeting, it seems like, because I remember Kendall saying something about the only thing that was not the same, that differentiated from our policies in Neola, was concerning advice to students concerning abortion, that we had said that we didn't feel was our position to make those type of recommendations to students. We did actually go down a list of things, and he compared them to the Neola policies and our policies, and all of our policies lined up with Neola, which was why we had voted at that time to go along with the policies that we had already had. We actually sat down and went down a list as far as I can recall, because I did go over the board policy, but I kind of remember some details, and that's usually how I remember them if we spoke on them out loud. So with that being said, I think Neola and our own policies are the same, is why we didn't adopt Neola to begin with. But you guys go ahead. But I just want to, in case I needed to help jog your memories, we did have that discussion in length, if I could recall.
And the other thing I want to add is that our financial officer, I think someone said all of the districts in the county use Neola, but she is on the board of Clio, I think, and she said they didn't adopt Neola policies.
That's right.
So it's sort of like.
Hi, Mrs. Wright. Hi, this is Carrie.
Oh, you're here. I didn't realize you were here.
We do at Clio actually use Neola. I think most in Genesee County do, but my prior position at Saginaw Township, we used we used the similar policies that the older set that you currently have. And and yes, this conversation kind of spurs from me because I felt that the purchasing policies were kind of conflicting, and I just wanted to make sure that my office and everyone in the district was doing what the board intended. So originally I had talked to Mrs. Treasurer Green about the purchasing policies, and we were going to talk at a finance committee last month. We were asked to hold that because last month at the governance, you had talked to, you wanted to talk about the Neola, and I think that's where this conversation kind of started. So our main intent here for administration is really to just come down to one policy, and Attorney Williams and Sean, I'm sorry, Sean, I don't know how to say your last name, Attorney Sean, have helped us to really look at the policies and really just in the finance area. And I know they're working on another one too, so that we are compliant, because having two is just too confusing. So whatever the will of the board is really where we want to go as administration. So just to be clear on that, that's where, because I just wanted to be clear as to why this was coming in and where I was coming from and why. So thank you.
Well, thank you for clarifying, because I know you said that, I thought it was with your district, with your home district, that you did not use them. So thank you for clearing that up. Miss Danielle, I think I saw your hand. Did I see
And then
somebody
you have
else?
Kendall's hand too.
Okay, Danielle, Kendall, and then Kendall.
I was looking forward to that finance committee because I did have more questions. I hate that was held, and I had no idea it was held until we just didn't have it. So going forward, I would always like to be in the finance committee. It was supposed to be another finance committee.
No, I'm referencing the one we had last month, Danielle. Mrs. Treasurer Green, sorry.
That's okay. Oh, girl, that's okay.
Okay.
I just want all my information, because I want to make sure my vote is what I intended to be. And it could be something so simple that I'm missing, but for me, I would like to hear from Neola also, because and it's disappointing to know that we took that money from the Mount Foundation for this and it's just going to be wasted. I think that's very disappointing. And I want to make sure we're always doing what we're supposed to do to be aligned with the other policies in the district, in the county, I should say. I'm sorry, in the county. And to be in compliance, we have to do that. So, and maybe no changes need to be made, but I just want to be clear. So I hope, Mo, you can get the Neola representative on the call with us, because I have some questions for them.
Okay, Kendall, before you ask your question, before you speak, you can answer this question. Are we required to have the same policies as all the other schools in the county?
No, you're not. No. Just like your bylaws. Every school district has a different set of bylaws. You run your meetings differently than other school districts throughout the state. There's no requirement like that. Neola does this on a national basis, and they've gotten paid a lot of money to try to put these together. The best practice is you take what they have and you look at what you have, and if you need to tweak your policies, you do that. And in retrospect, that would have been better. In this instance, the decision was made to forego a lot of that work and then use Neola as a supplemental set of policies. But that's caused a tremendous amount of confusion for the administration. And if you look at the agenda for this meeting, as we talked during the last governor's meeting, really the only policy that was not included in the Flint School Board policies was the one that's listed as item 5.5, that prohibition of referral or assistance. That was in the Neola policies, but in our review, that did not exist in the Flint School Board policies. So what you have in the documents is a policy number 5860 to be added to your current school board policies regarding, again, referring students for abortion. The Neola policy, as it currently is written is outdated because the statute that it relies on was amended in October of 2019. So that policy is outdated. So what you have in front of you for consideration is a revised policy regarding prohibition of referral or assistance that's consistent with the current state law. And then you will see that, you know, we have a proposed revised purchasing goods and services policy. You have a clean and a red line version of that that takes your current policy 3610. The CFO had questions about that. A lot of the language that was contained in that was not consistent with your current, you know, budgeting and purchasing practices. So that's been updated for your consideration. And as Carrie indicated, there was a need for a federal purchasing of goods and services policy. So you'll see on the agenda, a new policy has been put together to be added to the policies, which is 3615. That's something the auditors have identified, and the CFO. So you have that. And because of that, we had to add another provision to the conflict of interest policy, which is 5230. And you have both a clean and a red line against the current policy 5230. You have that in your material, your board material. And again, that adds language that's required under the federal purchasing policy regarding conflict of interest. And again, with what has been provided, that would, you know, pretty much cover everything. There's really nothing that is left out, and there's no issue of compliance in terms of your board policies and your regulations.
Mrs. Wright, Mrs. Ramsdale is requesting to speak.
Okay, and Danielle was before her, so Danielle and then Mrs. Ramsdale.
No, I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you.
Mrs. Ramsdale?
Okay, I did not, I just want to make it clear. I did not think anybody was trying to rush or push or do anything like that. It's true. I just feel more comfortable. And as the committee as a whole, you know, I would, and it's hard, sometimes it's hard to hear Carrie, but I just want to know that how she feels about it and what we've actually done. I just read it with the cross out things in. I just want to make sure I know what I'm doing. I'm not, you know, I'm not saying anybody's trying to rush anything through or put anything over, anything like that. I'm just saying I just want to make sure I know what we're changing and why we're changing it. There's always this and that I just would like to know. So I'm not accusing anybody of trying to push anything through. Okay?
Okay, I didn't get that, you know, anybody was being accused of anything. So I want to be clear about that. I didn't even think that, Mrs. Ramsdale. But Kendall, on policy 3610, we had a discussion earlier during a board meeting. It's been several months ago, where we also wanted to, which I don't think you or anybody from your staff were there, but we wanted to also add under 3610 that we would not purchase from board members who hold an interest in have a greater than 10% financial interest in a place either. We were going to add that, which I'm hoping everybody remembers that discussion.
Yeah, we have language in the draft policy under purchases from district employees and board members.
Is that the red line copy?
It's in both of them, yeah. But it's in,
okay.
if you look at purchases from district employees and board members, you know, you'll see the limitation on board members is tied to your conflict of interest policy.
Okay, gotcha.
There was an inconsistency. You had a provision. You have a provision in 3610 that is not consistent with your conflict of interest policy. So we're suggesting that you modify that language regarding purchases from board members to be consistent with the conflict of interest policy.
Okay. So
Okay.
that puts board members in the same category as other employees when it comes to selling things to the district or having an interest in.
It, not totally. With that, what it does is it requires, first of all, notice to the rest of the board that there is a conflict of interest, that the board member might have an ownership interest in the company that the district is purchasing from. And under the conflict of interest policy, Diana, it can happen, but it requires, number one, that the board member abstain from voting and that there be a supermajority vote if that's going to be considered. So it's not a strict prohibition, but it's, again, it's a conflict of interest process.
Okay. All right,
Okay.
Ms. Danielle. Thank
So
you, Kenny.
if some legislation changes for whatever reason, we would have to do some provisions or some revisions of our policies. And if we had to do that with Neola, is that something that's already paid for until 2023?
Well, you know, like I was saying earlier, most of Neola is what we already have.
I get that part.
So I would imagine that we can revise policies on our own. We don't have to have Neola there to revise a policy, because actually that's part of the board's responsibility. You know, it's fortunate that we had someone who would, you know, pay a consultant to come out and do that, but typically that's something that will be done by the board.
So,
Mrs. Wright, can I add something? And Monica, you can jump in and share, but I inquired of this of Monica earlier today, and I do think that with what we paid for, what the district paid for, Neola would do quarterly updates of the policies, and then they would just go to the updates of the policies would then go to the board for you guys to review. If so, you want to make changes with anything that they add from the quarterly updates.
So would they be updating our policies, or will they only update what they've done?
They would only, and Monica, you can jump in. I think they only update the Neola policies that they have done, and they would do quarterly updates as things change, and then send it to the board members for you guys to review and say yay or nay. Monica, is that what you shared with me earlier today?
That is correct. So Neola has assured me that they will, because we're paid through 2023, they will push out the updates that come from legislation. And as long as the board would be willing to recognize them and then possibly incorporate them into the policies. But we're still going to be receiving those updates. So anytime legislation does change, you will be, and they do come on a quarterly basis.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you guys had that information.
So can I finish my question? Because I don't think it would.
Go ahead, Ms. Green.
Neola would only update their policy due to legislation change or whatever. That's already paid for and covered, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So if we had to go outside of that because we chose to go with the old policies, we would have to pay somebody to do that, correct?
No, that's not correct, because those are resources, as I said before. It is not required to have a consultant do your policies. That's part of the responsibility of the board to do that. And you have to also keep in mind that we also have the resources of MASB to help us with policies. So it just depends on who's willing to do the work. Which, as I said before, I was not aware of a lot of that information regarding Neola about how long their contract was or any of that, because this whole thing came about because we had two sets of policies. And I, in particular, am still in favor of going back to the district's prior policies, where we already have, for the most part, the regulations written. whereas we don't have any regulations written for the Neola policies, which means that's a mammoth amount of work that's going to be put on our already transitional leadership. So I would like to see us do what is most expedient at this point, which is to go back to the district's policies that they had before, which through the Williams firm, they've confirmed that there's only one set that needs to be added. And they've also put together those that need to be revised. And then we can go through the process of going through the policies. Because if Neola is going to continue to work with us, then if everybody wants to have those meetings where we sit down and go through these side by side, I'm willing. But in the interim, we need to have something that's set.
Okay.
That our leadership can go to, not wait a year for us to go through policy.
And I guess for me, and I don't disagree with that, but for me, when something is already paid for versus seeking assistance or help with doing something different costs the district money, I just didn't quite understand why we would do that, why we would incur a cost when it was already paid for by a grant. And it, you know, I guess I'm looking at it from the treasurer's perspective.
And here again, I'm also looking at it from the perspective of just all of our staff when it comes to policy. Because if we don't revise, if we don't take the Neola away, we've already approved. So we'll stay with 2 sets of policies because it's not on the agenda to vote on Neola only. So here again, as I said, I think that considering where we are as a district, we need to have 1 set of policies. And if we need to do something else, then we need to take our time and do that something else. And while I understand about the cost factor, but I'm not looking at it only as we're not going to waste that money. I'm looking at what can we do to make our employees' jobs a little less stressful. And having 1 set of policies is what that is. And, you know, as I said, it's not my intent to waste money, but I didn't start this process. So here we are at this point in the process, and I think we need to do what's best for our employees.
And with that being said, I think I haven't talked to any of the employees directly, but in for example, the purchasing policy, the staff preference one over the other, and if so, why? I would like to hear those type of conversations also. Just because me in the seat I'm in, I don't deal with the policies every day. They do. So I think it's important to incorporate their opinions too. But I will never understand why we incurred a cost for something that was paid for by somebody who was kind enough to fund it, but we want to go out and seek other policies or improve or change policies at a fee. It just makes no sense to me.
The board didn't ask for this, honey.
No, I'm not saying we did, but for me,
I'm talking about the previous board when this came through. The board didn't ask this. This was brought and given to us. We didn't even ask for this.
Okay.
Yeah. This was brought to us and said, we're going to have Neola doing this. The board never had say so in that.
Oh, the board never voted on that?
Not that I can remember.
And
remember.
Mrs. Wright.
This is pre-me, so I don't have a clue. Who is that? Who is that asking?
Mrs. Ramsdale's asking to raise her hand.
Oh, sure. Go ahead. Are you done, Miss Perry and Miss Green? I don't want to cut you off.
I'm done. I think I've gotten my point across that I just, would like to see some, the Neola's spill on their policies and also.
Okay.
Excuse me?
Go ahead, Miss Ramsdale.
Thank you. What I heard from the steward was Neola, if there's legislatures change. Now, if there's a change, if the state laws change, Neola would just notify us of that. And that's a whole different thing than going through and changing all the policies. And you could see where that might happen. It may be interesting to see some of the changes they may make in Lansing, and Neola would just, I mean, this is what I heard, or what I would take from it, and Neola would just notify us of that. And they would say, okay, this is a change in, and who knows how they might change it, but then if it would affect board policies, Neola would just notify us, and then we have the option of fitting, if it's something that had to be fit into our policy, we could just go ahead and do that. But we're going through everything. But with all of this going on right now, we don't know the kinds of changes the legislature might make, and we may not be able to keep up with it. There was a time when we had a representative bill for the school district, but that's when we had money, which we don't have anymore. But they would, that Neola would just make us aware of those changes. You know, Flint board, the legislatures have decided that this, and this are now becoming rules for, you know, whatever. So that's what I heard. You know, not that we had to sit down with Neola again or anything like that, but they would just make us aware of any changes. Is that right, Ms. Stewart? Isn't that what I heard you say, or was I wrong?
Go upstairs and get my phone for me. What? Go upstairs and get my phone for me.
I think they would make us aware of those changes, and Mo, would they change their or revise their Neola policies as well, or just make us aware? Because that was information you shared with me earlier.
Well, but I see where that could be two things. One, if it was a Neola policy.
I can't hear her.
Mm-mm.
Did she go away?
You have that option.
Say it again.
I mean, is it?
State it again.
Okay, that if, okay, so Neola makes us aware of a change coming from the legislature.
Mm-hmm.
We already have that in place, so we don't think we need that change, or is that something? No, but if it's something brand new, and
Yes.
we work against the policies, we're more capable, of doing that for that one specific item. Like, for example, if it's, you know, with all the stuff going on, I can't think of one right off that might be. So their performance, what we do with it is what we do with it. You know, there's no have to, there's just, you know, they're just going to inform us, okay, so this has changed, and then we can adapt it into the policy that would fit in if we want, or if we so vote, or we can, or it might be something totally new that we had to create a different kind of policy for. But that would be our choice at that time. Mm-hmm. I think that's what I was hearing, and I think that would be a great advantage to us if Neola would just keep us aware of all of that. We don't have to say to them, yes, we're using it, or no, we're not.
Okay.
We can make that choice.
Any other questions or any further discussion?
Yes, in order, even if we went outside of the Neola and decided to make policies on behalf of our own selves, we don't have to seek an outside firm to make policies within the board. We can make policies just amongst ourselves with a vote in agreement to adopt that policy. We don't necessarily have to pay anyone to make policy for the district. So, you know, I understand, Ms. Green, I understand what you're saying about Neola being free, but I just wanted to give you that perspective that if we did go outside of Neola, like Ms. Rice said, we still have the MASB or whatever, their attorney that we can call and get direction from that is free to us, automatic. And we also have the right to make policies among ourselves and to refer any questions back to Kendall. And he's already retained for us, and that's his job. And I'm sure he don't have a problem with assisting us with that like he always has. So even whether we adopt Neola or we don't adopt Neola, It doesn't have to cost us any more money to make policy. I just wanted to share that with you guys. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. McIntosh. Okay, seeing no further discussion, the motion to move. The vote is on the motion to move the rescission of Neola supplemental policies to the Governance Committee of the Whole on May 13th for review by the full board. And we will take it.
Second.
Oh, we've already done that.
Oh,
We're about to vote. We're about to vote on it. So this will be a roll call vote. So I'll need you to say yes or no.
Okay.
Danielle Green,
Yes.
Carol McIntosh,
Yes.
Vera Perry,
yes.
Betty Ramsdale,
Yes.
and Diana Wright, yes. So the motion passes 5-0. Okay, moving on to action item 5.2, revised policy 3016, purchasing goods and services. I need a motion. I'm seeking a motion to move revised board policy 3610, purchasing goods and services to the Governance Committee of the Whole meeting tomorrow for full review by the board for a first reading of the revised board policy.
So moved.
Second.
It has been properly moved and second that we move the revised board policy 3610, purchasing goods and services to the Governance Committee of the Whole for review by the full board for a first reading of the revised board policy. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Danielle Green,
Yes.
Carol McIntosh,
Yes.
Vera Perry,
Yes.
Betty Ramsdale,
Yes.
and Diana Wright, yes. Okay, motion passes 5-0. Action 5.3, a new board policy 3615, federal purchasing of goods and services. I'm seeking a motion and second to move new board policy 3615, federal purchasing of goods and services to the Governance Committee of the Whole for review by the full board for a first reading.
So moved.
Second.
It has been properly moved and second that we move the new policy 3615, federal purchasing of goods and services to the Governance Committee of the Whole meeting tomorrow, May 13th, for a first reading by the board. Is there any discussion?
Just a quick question.
Ms. Perry?
And I read it, but can you give me, for some reason it's not clicking, why is it necessary to have one from the federal? Is that because of us having the grants from the federal government?
Yes, it is. And we have been cited by our auditors a couple times because we do not have this particular policy.
Okay, Sean, did I see your hand? To respond to the question I was thinking.
I think he's muted.
Interim superintendent did say.
I can't hear him.
Would you repeat what you said, Sean? You were muted.
I'm sorry, can you folks hear me?
No,
Yeah.
Now I
Okay, I'm sorry. I was just going to say what the interim superintendent just said. This particular policy is based on federal regulations which bind the school district in its expense grant funds. So that's
now is this the policy that causes us to be cited regarding the CRIM payments every year? Do you guys know?
It is part of that, and also the CRIM has the contract, which we're working on that as we speak.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Could I say something?
Go ahead, Ms. Payne.
I know my brain is getting old, but I never even remember having that brought to us from administration that we needed we needed this policy. I don't remember that even coming to us.
It was always in the auditing document.
No problem with that. But again,
Oh, okay.
I got to go back to administration. Administration never came to the board and said, we need a policy for this. Unless I have lost my mind, it never came. So administration should have been bringing something to us.
Right, and I think that's kind of, again, how this conversation all started was in my review of your policies. I saw the confliction between the two sets and then what was missing in your Flint policies. So that's why we want to do all of this and have these conversations, because there are things that have been missing. So that's exactly what we're trying to accomplish here today.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I'm good with that. But I'm just saying, if we've had this done to us twice, then whoever was sitting in that seat, and that's probably Carpenter in that group, they never brought this to us. I was treasurer during this time. Nothing ever came to me and said, we need a policy. That's what I'm saying. So I appreciate it coming, but I just want it to be said. The board never had the administration never brought anything and told the board we need this. I'm done.
I'm not sure why that did not happen. I'm sorry, but I do just want to lift. No,
prior to you, Anita.
I know.
Oh, okay.
I know. And
Okay.
I do just want to lift that for this policy, we need to have it in place by June 30th, or we may get another finding if it's not in place by June 30th. So I just wanted to share that with the board so that you guys were aware.
Get me a cleaner and turn this fan on. I'm hot.
Any other any further discussion about this particular policy? Okay, seeing no further discussion, the vote is on the motion to move new board policy 3615, federal purchasing of goods and services, to the governance committee of the whole for a full review by the board or first reading. We will do this by roll call vote. Ms. Green?
Yes.
I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ms. McIntosh?
Yes.
Mrs. Perry?
Yes.
Mrs. Perry?
Oh, I said yes. Did you hear me?
No, I didn't, but yeah, now I did.
Oh, okay.
Mrs. Ramsdale? Mrs. Ramsdale? And Diana Wright, yes. Motion passes 5-0. Okay. Action item 5.4, revised board policy 5230 for conflict of interest. I need a motion and second to move this revised board policy 5230 conflict of interest to the governance committee of the whole.
So move.
For first reading.
Sorry.
Okay, it has been moved and properly second that we move the revised board policy 5230 conflict of interest to the governance committee of the whole for review by the board for a first reading. Is there any discussion? Okay, this one, I was looking at this. This is pretty lengthy, so I'm hoping that by tomorrow we will really have all read through that, so that we'll really have our questions put together. Okay, so the vote is on the motion.
there was a lot of cleanup on that. You know, I think it reads better now, and I think that Carrie and Sean did a great job of putting those revisions together.
Okay, good, yeah, so, yeah, I had to print all those out because it's hard for me to read that kind of stuff online. Sean, on screen.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Wright. I just note just one thing that we'll need to clean up before the final version of this. If you look at paragraph D3 of this policy, I tried to move violations of the policy and can be the basis of discipline to the very end of the policy. But unfortunately, I didn't get that picked up in this draft of it. So D3 should be gone. It shows up as G2 in this policy.
Okay. So D3, that should be gone, you said?
Just scratch a line right through that.
And it shows up where again?
At the very end, paragraph G2.
Okay, I see it. Do the rest of you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sean. Any other questions or discussion regarding this policy?
Vice President Wright, may I please say something? This is Carrie.
Go ahead. Can you turn, I don't know why, but you sound extremely loud in my ear.
Sorry, maybe I'm talking to, I apologize. Sorry. Sean and I have gone through the purchasing policy 3610 a couple of different times. And I have expressed some concerns regarding that policy. So as you review that before perhaps the meeting tomorrow, I don't know if there are some suggestions that I could possibly make. To me, it is very restrictive and in essence would require most purchases down to office supplies, anything outside of personnel costs, utilities, and loan payments to come before the board, which could get very time consuming at board meetings and be a large administrative burden on the district to prepare all of those board motions. And I didn't know if there was maybe some different language that could possibly be used, or if this truly was the intent of the policy.
Okay, now we were talking about 5230 and you brought up
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yep.
So
my
like,
question or my comments are on 3610, sorry.
Okay, and okay, so 3610 is next, I think. No, actually it's two policies away. Unless I've got my right. No, we haven't. Or did we? No.
Yes, we did.
Oh,
yeah,
yes,
that was
the
first one. Yeah.
Yeah, we did 3610 already. And so what was your concern about that again? But since we're there, I want to write that down.
Okay, when you review that policy, it to me is very constrictive on the district and would make purchasing of most items have to come before the board. And I just want to make sure that we have a lot of clarity around what purchases exactly the board would like to see. This, like as I mentioned before, would be very time consuming for the board at your meetings, and also would be quite an administrative burden to do all of those board motions. So it was just my request, if Sean and I have kind of went back and forth and we're really trying to figure out a way to meet the intent of the board, and I felt I should raise that concern.
So I have one question. I'm looking at 3610, and so are you referring to the emergency purchase part of that?
No, so in paragraph 1, the second sentence states the payment of regular ongoing budgeted expenses, personnel, utilities, loan payments would require no further board action. The next sentence is concerning the purchase of all other goods and services require prior board approval.
Okay,
So that if we're limiting what doesn't need prior board approval, then that would require all others to go before the board.
and I guess my confusion, Ms. Sikelski, is that I'm only looking at the policies that were sent to us that we were discussing tonight, and I don't think I have a full 3610.
So I'm in the board book packet. I thought it is page 5 that I'm looking at, if that helps you, if you have your board packet.
No, I have printed out some. Maybe I missed that one. So
Okay, sorry, yeah.
Oh, that's okay.
So if you can just kind of review that. We do bring all the grants. Kiana does a great job and brings all the grants. So those are easy and those are okay. It just would really be the operation costs, things that you see from Rachel, and you're used to seeing those. But it also would include other purchases that the board or that the district would do in just the normal course of business within the budget that has been approved by the board. So this is really has been my question of why I was asking, because I just want to make sure that we aren't picking and choosing what comes before the board. I want to make sure that we bring everything to the board that you would like to see. So there's no question. And but the way that it's written now, it's going to be a considerable lift to bring every purchase to the board. If that's what the board desires, we will definitely do that. But I just want to make sure that we have a full understanding of what that might look like.
Can I say something?
I got my hand up as well.
Okay, well,
Okay.
Carol, did you beat
Carol,
me?
Yes, she did, Ms. Perry.
Okay.
Carol and then Ms. Perry.
Okay.
I thought we had set up a premises of purchases that could be made without the board's approval with a limit. Say, I'm not exactly sure the dollar amount, but say if it was $3,000 is my example, that they can't go over, say, $6,000 within a period of time without the board approval. I thought we asked for a time and limit, a monomial limit on the purchase, the number, the financial number that they can spend without board approval. And we had came up with so many purchases and an amount of those purchases and a not to exceed amount as well. It wasn't restricted to every item, I didn't think, because we discussed that in length.
Yep, it currently the policy reads that the superintendent may make 3 purchases without prior board approval per month up to $5,000, and that she would notify the board within 24 hours of doing that. But that would just be 3 a month, and a district our size makes lots of purchases every month, so it would still be quite a few actions on the board's behalf to make the purchases that the district needs to make to continue to function.
Okay, we have board meetings every other week, so if we don't have a board meeting this week and she has the authorization to order up to 3 orders without permission, then within those 3 orders seems like she'd be coming before the board by next week or the week thereafter.
And I see your point, Mrs. McIntosh, because my question would be,
You forget about me?
oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Perry. I'm sorry. I forgot. I did. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
For me, Don't take offense to anybody, but I gotta say it. Until my trust comes back, I want to see everything, because this board has been screwed so many times because purchases are made, we don't know about it. And so for me, I have to see everything because I don't want a surprise oops. And then somebody says, oh, well, we thought we did this. Oh, well, we're sorry. We'll try to do better next time. I don't want to hear it. So for me, I need to see all purchases, but that's me.
Okay.
Right. And I agree with that as well, that I think we have given enough leeway that everything is pretty much covered because, you know, I've been on the board for what, 4 or 5 years now, and I've not seen anything that didn't get covered if we had the money. So I think with what we've done already, because whatever the business office is doing is part of what that superintendent is approving with the 3 purchases per week or month or whatever it is for the $5,000. So I don't really see where that should be an issue. But you know, I'm not a treasurer, so I don't know. Miss Danielle, what's your thinking on that?
And that's why I brought up some feedback from administration to see which policies that they were more comfortable with and why. When I was speaking earlier, I brought that up because when I make my vote, I want to incorporate that into my thought process because I do want to be able to run the without bringing every little thing to us. I do understand those $5,000 limits three times a month, and that's good. So for me, I just incorporate that information when I decide which way I'm going to vote.
So can I ask a question?
So, whoops, sorry.
Just for clarity for me, if it is something that has been approved in the budget, does that need to come before the board, or is it things
Oh.
that are outside of what's already approved in the budget?
I would think it's things outside of the budget because things that we know we are going to have reoccurring to run the district. We've already given the leeway for those things to be paid that we can foresee. 3 things a month that we can't foresee, and you're coming before the board
Okay.
at least twice a month. And I think the things that have been approved have been approved. You know,
Okay.
I
So
would.
things that have been approved in the budget are good, but then things outside of the budget, it's 3 times a month up to 5,000.
I see that a little bit differently.
Yeah, I was gonna, oops, I apologize. I was, that everything then would be, I mean, it would be very rare then to bring anything to the board if it's within the approved budget, because each item is part of what you've approved. So, and I guess, and it's totally fine with me, but we would not really need those. You know, we typically don't overspend our budget. That doesn't, I mean, I know that maybe is different from before, but currently that is my practice. So is that what you're thinking, Vice President Wright? Is that if you've approved the board or the budget, then we would not bring those individual purchases to you?
No, I don't agree with that at all, because approving a budget and approving a purchase is 2 different things. You know, when you approve a budget, you're saying we have X number of dollars to spend in this area. When you approve a purchase, it depends, you have to bring that purchase, you know, it depends on who are you getting it from. Does it have to be bid out? You know, there are whole lots of things related to a purchase, and then there are policies related to bringing the purchases to the board. So I don't want us to confuse a budget and a purchase, because they're 2 different things. And from my thinking, they are.
Right.
Okay.
So from where I stand, we need to continue what we're doing, which you need to bring what needs to be brought. And especially as we're going through this transition period, we don't need to start sort of loosening things up until we have fully made it through whatever this transition period will be. That's how I view it, you know.
So I have another question then. So So is the administration being asked to bring every single line item before us, including utilities and things of that nature? Is that what you guys are saying?
That's not what I'm talking about. No.
Okay, well, can you help me? Can you get, can I get a point of clarity here? Because I'm a little lost.
I don't think we have ever required administration to bring the light bill and the gas bill and all of that stuff to the board. We're talking about budgeted purchases or budgeted increasing, if we have a budget for personnel, they bring that person to the board. You don't just hire them. So if we approve a budget, then does that mean that they get to hire somebody without bringing them back to the board? So
Oh,
there's a whole lot involved in saying that because we've approved a budget, what you buy with that budget doesn't have to come back to the board. That I don't think that's good policy.
no, that's that's not what I was saying. I don't know if you got that.
Right.
But my understanding was the budget was already set up for day-to-day operationals. That was included as far as like utilities and stuff. Purchases, that's something different, but I would think purchases that we need to function on a daily basis would also have some type of funding already included in the budget. So no, I absolutely agree not to just be out here just since it's a budget here, don't just be buying stuff. I'm talking about things, I don't know because now it's getting foggy and I'm getting lost. So go ahead.
Kendall had his hand up, Diana.
Mr. Williams, I see him.
Oh.
Kendall.
Yeah, just again, look at the documentation and the draft that Sean and Carrie put together references the point that Carol made, and that is if it's a payment for ongoing regular operational expenses, like, and again, it's in there parenthetically, personnel costs, utilities, loan and bond obligation, that doesn't have to come back to the board. You've already approved it and it gets paid. Health insurance premiums, those kinds of things. Carrie's question is, really how much more do you want to come to the board for approval? Years ago, before the policy was amended, you set a threshold. And I think it was about $25,000. Any contract that was less than $25,000 didn't need approval. And I think, as Vera's indicated, there were some issues with that, and that's why the board modified it and got rid of that threshold. But Carol, to your point, that issue that you've raised has been addressed in the draft policy.
Okay.
And I agree that, for example, if the Title I budget, if we approve the Title I budget, which contains all kinds of purchases and things like that, that's a different set of circumstances. So once that money is approved, then yes, you buy all that stuff that we've approved, but that doesn't apply to everything.
Okay.
Okay, can I ask then just one more question? If this was to be adopted, the other one that we will obviously continue to bring you the grants, and then we'll bring you the individual purchases as you have indicated. But student activities are considered general fund dollars and obviously go through the central office now. Is that just something that I can write just one blanket resolution for, and that I wouldn't have to bring each student activity to you, or would that still fall under the same general guidelines?
What kind of student activities are you referencing?
So you know how, perhaps you remember when you were a principal in the district, you had your own bank account, and it was the funds that the students raised to, with, I know DTM does the pecan sales, and then they do things within their own building. So those are all held now at central office due to the GASB 84 change that started. So they are considered general fund dollars because of the GASB change. So I was just wondering if, we could just have a blanket understanding that resolution to not have to bring those kind of things when they want to spend those dollars. Or would you want those all separately?
Do I see any hands before I comment? Okay.
Well, I can go whenever.
Okay. I think that here again, it depends on the amount. Because if a school is spending $25,000, I think the board needs to know what they're spending it for, and it has to go through all of the regular budgetary processes. But you're correct. As a principal, when I had a budget and we raised our money, yeah, I wanted to be able to be free to do what I needed to do for my school without having to wait a month. But if a school is doing major purchases and things like that over those threshold amounts, then I think that the board should be made aware. I don't know if it requires approval, but that the finance office should make sure that it meets all of the requirements for schools when it comes to spending money. And it sort of takes me back to earlier in the year when we found out that the district had used some of the schools' endowment dollars. I think the board needs to be made aware of those kinds of things, no matter how much the money is, because we want to make sure that those are used in line with whatever the person who gave intended. So, but outside of that, no, I don't think we need to have every single purchase from schools brought to the board. That's just my opinion.
So it sounds like, oh, sorry, Ms. Perry, go ahead.
Carol?
Did you say if it's money that even if it is money that they raised, I'm with Ms. Wright. We probably should still know about those dollars and have them documented somewhere, because when you get to letting people spend monies without tracking it or without a check and balance system, then those dollars have a tendency to get away from you without without awareness throughout the building. You have one person making moves and nobody else knows about it. So I think it is important that the board is aware of what those dollars are being spent on. But at the same time, if the school has raised those funds, I do think they should have the flexibility to determine what they like to spend those dollars on, as long as we're sure that's what they are actually spending it on. We have to be physically responsible.
So those are all now audited dollars, and they are all held at central office, and they follow the same approval and purchase order process as every other dollar that's spent in the district. So there's definitely lots of oversight. But if you, I'm still not sure if we're asking for a resolution or just an informational thing when it comes to student activities.
I think just informational.
I think information is fine.
Okay, perfect.
I mean, Kendall and Sean is gone. Kendall, does that sound right? Oh, he didn't.
Yeah, no. Can you hear me okay, Diana?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think what administration is looking for is some direction as to how they proceed. They want some clarity, and I think if you can make it clear to them what is going to be informational and what's going to require action, then they can proceed. And this idea of this issue regarding student activities and those expenses, if they can bring kind of a general resolution with the understanding that they're going to inform the board about certain expenditures, I think that would give them the direction that they need.
Okay, so did I see a hand? Okay, I'm agreeing with what Kendall is saying, that a general resolution and information. So we kind of need both. Is that what I'm hearing you say, Kendall?
Yes. Yeah. So
that it's going to depend on the amount, which, if it's exceeding those guidelines for any other financial purchase, then we follow the same process. So administrators would need to know, if you want to spend $10,000, you can't call me tomorrow and say, send this check to somebody, because it may have to go before the board.
Understand.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, so where are we here? Okay, so we're at the 5230 conflict of interest. So we're going to vote on the motion to move revised board policy 5230 conflict of interest to the governance committee for a first reading by the board. We will do a roll call vote. Ms. Green? Oh, did she say something?
She said your
Yes.
Ms.
name.
Green?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Ms. McIntosh?
Yes.
Ms. Perry?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsdale?
Yes.
And Diana Wright, yes. Okay, thank you. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, action item 5.5, new board policy prohibition. Oh, I can't say that word. Of referral or assistance. This I need a motion to move item board. I'm sorry, I need a motion to move board policy 5860, prohibition of referral or assistance to the governance committee of the whole for review and a first reading by the board.
Not 5.5?
5.5.
Okay.
So
It is
moved.
5.5, yeah.
Okay, it has been properly moved and second that we move new board policy 5860, prohibition of referral or assistance to the governance committee for first reading. Is there any discussion?
Yeah.
Ms. Perry?
When this gets through, this type of policy, will administration, Mrs. Stewart, will administration make sure, have some type of a meeting to where all employees will be notified? And when you have those meetings, have everyone sign in, so just in case it happens, a person cannot say, oh, I didn't know about this. So, because there's got to be some regulations written. So are you all, have you thought about those types of regulations?
Yes, ma'am. So last month, I believe you guys approved the use of Power School. And Power School is it's a technology where we can put it online, and staff has the ability to, once they attend the professional development, we have the ability to take attendance of who was there, who was absent, so we can keep track of our staff members who participated, and then be able to loop back around to those staff members who did not participate, so that we can offer them an additional wave of the professional development.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing no further discussion, the vote is on the motion to move new board policy 5860, prohibition of referral or assistance to the governance committee of the whole for review by the board for first reading. Roll call vote. Ms. Green?
Yes.
Ms. McIntosh?
Yes.
Ms. Perry?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramsdale?
Yes.
And Diana Wright, yes. The motion passes 5-0. Okay, last item is an information item. You were mailed a proposed schedule of governance meetings for the rest of 2020. Is there any discussion about that schedule? So our next governance meeting is scheduled for June 9th, 2020. Are there any other comments before I adjourn the meeting? Ms. Green?
I just want to say my grandbaby may be coming around that time. So I use remote, but if I'm busy with him, I will not be.
Congratulations, congratulations.
Yes,
Okay.
congratulations.
Definitely, those of us who are already Grammys, we understand. Grammys and Mimis, we understand.
That's right, Mimi.
I'm a Grammy.
Don't forget,
I don't know.
don't forget grandpas. We got I'm a granddad.
I got a grandpa over there. Okay, I don't know what Mrs. Ramsdale's children call her, but we definitely grandchildren call her, but we definitely get it. What do they call you? What did she say?
For grandma.
Oh, okay, that's different. Okay, well, thank you, Mrs. Ramsdale. So, seeing no further action, I declare the governance committee meeting adjourned. And don't forget, we have board meeting tomorrow.
May I ask a question real quick?
Okay, go